Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Sean Hannity and Pete Hegseth tag team to make Jessica Tarlov wish that she never even came to Fox News. They nearly laugh her out of the building. Let's dive in.
Jessica, let me give you an opportunity. I laid out all the money America spends, American taxpayers pay, the tens and tens and tens of billions of dollars to all these international organizations promoting globalism, anti-capitalism, socialism. It's like the Green New Deal has nothing to do with anything green except for green socialism. The same with the World Economic Forum. Why are we paying a penny to these organizations? Why a penny to the World Health Organization? Why don't we let China have the UN? They can keep it. They can pay the $7 billion a year that we're paying.
Well, if these international organizations don't have U.S. influence, I'd say, generally speaking, more Western democratic influence, we know what's going to happen. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, those are going to be the countries that are in charge of the world, not us. We're the leader of the free world. It's our responsibility to take part in these. I would never say that they are well managed.
You think that these organizations are having any positive impact, that the American people are benefiting from the billions of dollars that our government wastes on these globalist, socialist organizations?
First of all, I would add to the pile, if you're going to insist on calling them globalist socialist organizations, the fact that they're democratic organizations, and that's one of their core missions to promote. So let's look at NATO. What NATO is doing right now to support Ukraine is one of the most incredible things in modern history. Where would we be right now? Vladimir Putin would be in charge of Ukraine. The USSR would be being rebuilt if it weren't for NATO.
Who's paying more for NATO, the United States or Western European NATO countries? We are.
We are paying more. I would never. No, I said we are. But yeah, everyone knows that we are. First of all, we have more money than them to contribute. And I'm not saying that we can't reassess how much we do contribute to these organizations.
Tell that to the middle class and poor that are struggling.
Western Europe is a capitalist set of countries, too.
Pete,
barely. Sometimes.
Pete, why should we pay a dime?
They should then fund their own defense. We shouldn't pay a dime. We should not pay a dime. The UN is in the pocket of autocrats and the communist Chinese. The World Economic Forum, they're praising the Chinese model. The World Health Organization, as we saw during COVID, in the pocket of the communist Chinese. The longer we leave ourselves to be beholden to these international organizations, the weaker we become. We should leave them, make them irrelevant, and form our own freedom-loving organizations. Who's the head of the Human Rights Council right now at the UN? Is it North Korea or is it Iran? Because these are the types of countries that capture control and then they browbeat us as if we're the problem, when we fund them, and we're the ones that saved the world and created them in World War II, and we should be the leaders of the free world, but not as a part of these organizations.
All right. I got to thank you both.
Jessica, I think most people would disagree with you.
No, I don't think so. I think I vote for Pete.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But, Jessica, you're very brave.
We
appreciate you coming on.
You take down NATO.
Thanks, NATO's a little different. I'm not talking about NATO. However, we ought not be paying the bulk of money.
NATO's a little different.
Europe needs to step up and protect themselves.
Alliance, but Europe does need to step up.
It was on your list. It was on your list, and I've got good things to say about the UN and the World Economic Forum.
We are overpaying for organizations, many of which hate us.
Save the day.
Oh, bless her heart. She is trying her best. So give her some credit. She is one of the few liberal voices that can come on Fox News, mainly because she actually gets along with people behind the scenes. Most liberals have a problem with that. It's also by Scott Jennings is on CNN. So, on one hand, thank you, Jessica, for bringing a dissenting opinion, even though you're wrong. I mean, just in classic fashion, you are completely wrong. The UN is compromised. It used to be this idea of how the free world stands against the communist world, okay? It's not like that anymore. The communists are gone, and now we have an entirely new face of enemies that aren't just nation states anymore. And so the UN is kind of useless, and they're not even good at what they do. Don't look up what they did in the Congo, okay? They made everything worse, and they usually do. So again, the UN is it's just not viable in the modern world. And then there's NATO. The whole idea of NATO was supposed to be a military check against the expansionist that was the Soviet Empire. Remember, after World War II, they had expanded and created essentially what was an iron curtain across all of Europe. And it crossed most of Central Europe as well. Fortunately, the moment those nations had the opportunity, they left the USSR just the moment they could. Because historically speaking, the Russians, even after they got rid of Lenin and Stalin, thank God, even when Nikita Khrushchev was actually trying to scale down the insanities of their communist empire, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to bring them freedom, and now that's why they're in such a terrible state today. They're still not fully over the problems of bad government. They're still not over the problems that came up during the communist years. And so Russia is in a bad spot. And so they think it's going to be a good idea to invade Ukraine. And it has not turned out well for anybody. They were not expecting Ukraine to put up much of a resistance because they fundamentally just don't understand that their neighbors have been wanting to get away from them for forever. And so this requires a completely different kind of strategy and ideology, and it requires something that's thinking outside of the box of the UN, of NATO, of the World Health Organization, which, by the way, guess who tacitly runs the World Health Organization? It's not the United States, it's the Chinese Communist Party. So Pete Hegseth is right to say that these organizations need a complete reevaluation. Either they need to change their makeup and change their initial goals, or we need to rethink whether we should even be a part of all this nonsense. And furthermore, we're the ones that fund all of this. Okay, that's our tax dollars. Okay, we're the ones that prop up all the NATO countries. What Donald Trump did at the beginning of his first term, and I'm really glad that he's addressing this again, is make NATO members pay their fair share. And quite literally, the Democrat Party, the party of make the rich pay more taxes, they need to pay their fair share. They're awful quiet when it comes to NATO, and awful quiet when it comes to the UN. For some reason, they believe in these organizations. For some reason, they think that they can legislate and bureaucratize everything, and that's how we're going to deliver freedom. Freedom happens when entrepreneurial people are able to own property and open up businesses and be able to maintain those. That is the bedrock of any good democracy, and Democrats have forgotten that. They've forgotten it because they have now become the party of rich white liberals. And rich white liberals require a large bureaucracy. They require a left-leaning style mode of thinking and morality. And without that, their whole little society, their ivory tower, and their gated communities will collapse in on itself. Okay? They are not allowed to think outside the box because you're not supposed to leave the gated community. That's where all the poor people live. That's literally their mentality, and that's what Pete Hegseth is fighting against here. I am so glad that this dude is now in a position where he can actually deal some damage to a system that is corroded. Did you know that we are up in our recruiting elements? And all because Joe Biden realized at the end of, towards the end of his presidency, that not only was he not going to win the upcoming election, but he was probably going to have to step aside. So he did his best to tell everyone to stop being lefty lunatics and start changing some things. So even the specter of Donald Trump was able to get Joe Biden to at least have some good come out of his presidency. That is the strength of the MAGA movement. That's where the real power is. And we need to start reconsidering where we give our tax dollars, who we are enabling, because we've just found out with USAID that we are wasting tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars even, and they're not even going to good causes. Okay? So ultimately, Jessica Tarlov, thank you for trying. I know having a dissenting voice is good for Fox News, and you do a pretty decent job, but remember, she had to pivot from the initial content and then start to make it all about NATO when we're trying to talk about the waste and fraud in the World Health Organization, in the UN, or the World Economic Forum. That's something that we really haven't tackled yet too much on this channel, but I would love to in the future. Because, oh boy, does that need some tackling. Let me put it to you that way. So Pete Hegseth and Sean Hannity are out there asking the right questions and basically making the point that we need to reallocate and reassess where our money goes and where our influence goes. Because right now, just giving a blank check to NATO isn't working. Giving a blank check to the UN isn't working. That is not how you perpetuate freedom and a better, safer world. And that is what the new administration, it's what Donald Trump wants to do. Sean Hannity understands it. Pete Hegseth understands it. And I think you understand it as well. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politburo. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.